Hello and welcome to today's webinar organised by Illumina. I'm Helen Bristow, editor of The Pathologist, and I'm delighted to be moderating this session covering the latest advancements in the TruSight Oncology 500 version 2. Firstly, please allow me to introduce today's speakers, Daniel Azuara and Heather Robinson. Daniel is a molecular biologist from the Instituto Catalan de Oncologia in Spain. And Heather is Oncology Product Manager at Illumina. Following their presentation, the speakers will be on hand to answer your questions in a live Q&A session. And please be aware that you can submit questions at any time throughout the webinar using the questions function on the webinar dashboard. So without further ado, let's get on with today's presentation. So Daniel and Heather, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Robinson and I'm a product manager at Illumina supporting the TSO 500 tissue RUO portfolio. I'm very happy to be here today to present the latest product update by introducing TruSight Oncology 500 version 2. And after I present, we'll have our guest speaker, Daniel Azuara from ICO. So we'll first start with a product introduction. Next, we'll move to the workflow and performance improvements, finish up with the analytical performance internal data, and then a really nice presentation from Daniel on the analytical performance at the Catalan Institute of Oncology from their beta testing of the product itself. So introducing TruSight Oncology 500 V2. TSO 500 V2 has been designed with our customers in mind, with features that directly address customer feedback and make the workflow faster and easier to use. Exciting new features include a faster, easier workflow with a 1 to 2 day faster turnaround time and reduced hands-on time. The Myriad Genomic Instability Score, which is gold standard for HRD, can now be generated for every sample, with the HRD panel now included in the kit. We'll see increased coverage of the panels and the improved coverage of high GC regions, such as the TERT promoter, even with lower input. There's 50% less packaging, 70% less tubes for automation kits, and improved usability of our kits. We have automation methods with flexible batching and automated data analysis from sequencer to insights, supported with Dragon and Illumina connected insights. Turnaround time is very critical for enabling CGP in oncology. So one of the most exciting features of TSO 500 V2 is the 1 to 2 day improvement in the workflow turnaround time. With TSO 500 version 1 and HT, customers often don't start sequencing until day 4. With TSO 500 V2, library prep can be completed on day 1 in about 6 to 8 hours, and then enrichment, normalization, pooling, and starting the sequencing run can be completed on day 2 in about 5 to 7 hours. This time can also be further reduced by running the automation method overnight. We've also addressed customer feedback regarding packaging and usability. TSO 500 V2 has a 50% reduction in the number of boxes per kit, with the HRD panel now included in the kit. We have a reduction in the number of tubes for automation kit, which reduces the number of tubes that can be loaded onto the liquid handler and reduces user error. There's colored labels and the reagent names are marked on the cap of the tubes, making it easier to identify the correct reagent. The TSO 500 V2 automation kits and methods for Hamilton Star MOA and Beckman i7 liquid handlers were designed to address customer feedback, reduce turnaround time, and reduce user errors. Improvements in the automation methods include a faster method that has the option to be run overnight. The HRD workflow is now fully automated while also being optional. The method supports any batch size and any combination of DNA, RNA, and HRD libraries with a minimum of 4 DNA or 4 RNA samples. The method requires loading only 1 tube per reagent, and reagent tubes can be used up to 6 times. And the method will help users combine multiple kits and multiple reagent tubes if needed. And after reagent tubes are loaded onto the deck, the reagents will first be transferred to a PCR plate so the user can return the reagent tubes to storage before the method starts processing samples. TSO 500 V2 data analysis is powered by the fast and innovative Dragon platform and has options for reporting, including Illumina Connected Insights, Valsera, as well as other commercial options. Key benefits of the analysis solution include automated analysis and reporting from sequencer to report using auto launch, a user-friendly interface and base-based run planner that helps users create error-free sample sheets, and streamlined data storage and oversight in the cloud. The analytical performance of TSO 500 V2 is equivalent or better than TSO 500 version 1. Changes to library prep chemistries such as optimization of reactions, new reagents, and improved library conversion result in equivalent or better variant calling, even at lower DNA and RNA input levels. The innovative new assay chemistry translates to higher median exon coverage for FFPE samples, making the assay more sensitive. TSO 500 V2 at 30 nanograms of DNA input has equivalent or better median exon coverage as version 1 at 40 nanograms of input. Higher coverage can lead to detection of more low-frequency variants and less sample failures for lower quality samples. In some cases, sample input can also be reduced while still maintaining enough coverage for sensitive variant detection. TSO 500 V2's new chemistry also translates to more even coverage across high AT and high GC regions, such as the TERT promoter. In this example, you can see the TERT promoter coverage for a low-quality FFPE sample is about 3 times higher with the V2 assay, even at lower input. This table includes examples of small variants that were detected with TSO 500 V2, with variants as low as 1% VAF. 5% VAF is verified as the limit of detection for small variants for at least a 95% detection rate, and variant calling will depend on the quality of the sample. This next table demonstrates performance of CNV calling with TSO 500 V2 at different input levels. TSO 500 V2 fold change results are highly concordant to the version 1 assay. 19 CNVs from 7 FFPE samples were evaluated in this table. And in addition to fold change, the assay can report absolute copy number of CNVs, which is a more direct comparison to other methods such as FISH. TSO 500 V2 reports immuno-oncology biomarkers TMB and MSI, and the daily is highly concordant to the version 1 assay. The data in these figures is from 25 FFPE samples and 1 contrived reference sample. TSO 500 V2 also reports the Myriad genomic instability score for HRD detection using an algorithm that's licensed from Myriad Genetics. The HRD panel is included in every kit so that GIS can be generated for every sample. With the V2 assay, GIS is highly concordant to our version 1 assay and highly concordant to the reference standard HRD test. TSO 500 V2 also reports BRCA large rearrangements or exon level CNVs. LR calling is sensitive with the V2 assay with a limit of detection of 25% VAF for 3 or more exons and 41% VAF for less than 3 exons. Fusion and splice variant detection is very sensitive with TSO500 V2 as well. The limit of detection is 17 supporting reads for fusions and 21 supporting reads for splice variants. With the V2 chemistry, we see a higher number of supporting reads for RNA fusions, even down to 20 nanograms of RNA input. So in summary, TSO500 V2 has a faster workflow with Myriad HRD now included in the kit. It has improved usability and automation methods with flexible batching, as well as automated data analysis from sequencer to report. The V2 assay analytical performance includes sensitive variant calling and high concordance to the V1 assay. It has median exon coverage that's higher even at lower input levels, higher coverage of AT-rich and GC-rich regions, such as the TERT promoter, sensitive variant detection of small variants and CNVs, highly concordant TMB, MSI, and GIS, and sensitive fusion and splice variant detection from RNA. Thank you for listening, and please reach out to your Illumina representative to evaluate TSO500 V2 today. And with that, I'll pass over the presentation to our guest speaker, Daniel Azura.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about the analytical performance of TruSight Oncology 500 V2. This is a picture of the hospital where I work. This is my disclaimer. ICO is the Catalan Institute of Oncology, and it's one of the largest comprehensive cancer centers in Catalonia and in Spain. It includes 4 general hospitals, employs more than 1,500 professionals, and serves as a reference cancer center for 50% of the adult population in Catalonia. A few years ago, the government launched the Precision Medicine Program, which funds NGS studies for certain tumor types. We are one of the reference centers for the analysis of solid tumors and hereditary cancer. For this purpose, the core lab of molecular genetic analysis at the Bellvitge campus was established. It's a joint laboratory between the pathology and biochemistry departments of Bellvitge hospitals and the molecular diagnostic laboratory of the Catalan Institute of Oncology. It has pipetting robots for the library preparation and different sequences. Our experience with comprehensive gene panels began several years ago with Illumina's first small panels, such as the TruSight Tumor 15 and 170. Later, we started analyzing samples with version 1 of the TSO500, more recently with the CGP panel including HRD analysis, and over the past year and a half, we have been working with version 2 of the TSO500. The TSO500 panel was useful for identifying actionable alterations in driver genes in patients with non-small cell lung cancer. Hybrid capture sequencing using the TSO500 panel had a very low failure rate in clinical samples. High concordance was observed between single gene test and NGS sequencing. Large NGS panels provide additional genomic information that could impact therapeutic or preventive strategies. An additional advantage of using a broad panel is the ability to consider concurrent mutations in tumor suppressor genes, such as mutations in TP53, STK11, or KEAP1, which are gaining clinical relevance in the context of tumors with KRAS mutations. The PREICO program is a molecular analysis program using an NGS platform with the ICO network of oncology centers, Hospitalet, Badalona, and Girona, to identify mutations that help preselect patients eligible for phase 1 clinical trials. It is conducted in adult patients with advanced solid disease and tumor eligible for phase 1, but who are not candidates for standard NGS testing. In an initial cohort of 112 patients, a driver gene suitable for target treatment was found in 11% of cases, and in 8%, target treatments that were already approved could be administered. In another study, we studied homologous recombination deficiency in a cohort of 96 consecutive high-grade serous ovarian carcinoma samples previously analyzed by the reference standard method. When calculating the genomic instability score levels, we obtained a 90% positive percentage agreement. The reproducibility of the assay is very high. In a run with our repeated samples, the results are highly consistent. Regarding the HRD status, we found only one discrepancy involving BRCA2 frameshift mutation, which we detect with the CCP assay at a very low allele frequency and was not detected by the reference standard. The overall percentage agreement in the homologous recombination deficiency status was 92% between two methods. For the validation study comparison TSO500 version 1 and version 2, we ran a total of 48 samples over the course of 6 runs with a variety of different tumor types, mainly lung and colorectal cancer samples, but also samples of ovarian, stomach, astrocytoma, prostate, parotid, and duodenum cancers were also included. We chose to perform the workflow manually and have an NextSeq 550 for sequencing. In the initial comparison with high DNA input, 120 nanograms in both versions, we did not observe differences in median exon coverage. The blue bars represent version 1 and the orange bars represent version 2. A higher insert size was observed in version 2, along with more MSI sites detected in version 2. The NGS-based evaluation with the TSO500 assays analyzed 130 MSI marker sites consisting of homopolymers to calculate a precise quantitative score of MSI status and stable points. When comparing 120 nanograms in version 1 versus 30 nanograms in version 2, we observe higher median exon coverage in version 1. However, there was a higher insert size and more MSI sites in version 2 as well. Consistent insert size indicate good library preparation. Regarding RNA, in the comparison of 16 samples with high levels, 120 nanograms in both B1 and B2, higher median gene coverage, graded on target reads, and higher insert size were observed in version 2 compared to version 1, along with a lower coefficient of variation, indicating lower variability and more stable expression in B2 than in B1. These results are maintained when RNA input is reduced to 40 nanograms in B2. We observe the same behavior with less starting material, indicating greater efficiency. Regarding HRD, the comparison could only be performed with 2 samples. The results show higher median exon coverage for version 1, higher median target HRD coverage for version 2, and concordant GIST scores. Regarding variant detection in DNA, there was high concordance of small variants across input conditions between B1 and B2. No bias was observed in variant frequency values, B1 and B2, and SIMB discrepancies were close to the limit of detection, and further investigation is ongoing. Regarding variant detection in RNA, higher supporting rates were observed for fusions in version 2 compared to version 1. And for splice variants, version 2 showed higher supporting rates and reported more splice breakouts. We can summarize the results of time in beta testing in these points. TSO500b2 DNA and RNA QC metrics at high and low input levels look consistent with version 1. HRD, QC, and GIS are equivalent between V1 and V2. High small variant concordance across input conditions between V1 and V2 because no bias observed in variant frequency values between V1 and V2, and CMV discrepancies are close to limit of detection, and further investigation is ongoing. Higher supporting rates in version 2 for fusions and splice variants are also observed. The version 2 of the kits is faster, easier workflow, and integrated HRD components. Less boxes and tubes to manage, which means we spend less time unboxing. And finally, color code tubes, and there is less room for the error, and it's much easier to track the different steps in the workflow. Finally, we would like to thank all the team members who have been involved in this project, and that's all. If you have any question and it's within my knowledge, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Heather and Daniel, for a great presentation. Now it's over to you, the audience. There is still a chance to submit your questions to our two experts on anything that's come up today. And please be assured, if we don't get around to answering your question today, it will be answered after the presentation via email. So the first question is for Daniel. Which new feature of the TSO 500 version 2 do you feel is most impressive or important to ICO, and why?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Helen. The workflow for TSO 500 V2 is much faster with only one hybridization, and we are now able to start sequencing DNA and RNA libraries at the end of day 2. This means our total workflow end-to-end is complete in 4 days. This is a major improvement, especially for an assay which enables comprehensive genomic profiling of hundreds of genes. It is also important that the protocol incorporates HRD determination.
Thank you for that. The next question is, have you considered any alternative CGP assays? And as a long-time user of the TSO 500, what keeps you using the CGP panel?
Okay, we have indeed tested other CGP panels over the past few years, but TSO 500 is the one we have liked the most. As favorable aspects, it has great reproducibility and robustness in the results. It is a protocol that is automated in the main molecular laboratory robots and offers not only information related to HRD, but also a large number of alterations both at the DNA and RNA level. And finally, the economic aspect that I'm not going to discuss here must also be taken into account.
Sure. And from your perspective, what are the benefits of running the HRD panel for every sample?
HRD evaluation is crucial because it guides personalized therapy, predicts tumor aggressiveness, and identifies patients who may benefit from PARP inhibitors or DNA damaging chemotherapy. Its prevalence and impact vary across cancer types, making tumor-specific assessment essential. The HRD spiking is very easy to implement, and we love the option to report HRD for more tumor types. We are very interested in evaluating genomic instability in prostate and breast cancer samples.
Thank you. Another one for you, Daniel. What input level does ICO typically use for CGP, and in which scenario do you run lower inputs?
Yes. We can start with around 50 nanograms DNA RNA if the biopsy allows. However, some biopsies are very small, for example, lung biopsy, and the amounts of DNA and RNA that we obtain are very low. If there is no option to obtain more material, we proceed with the libraries anyway. The sample data generated with TSO 500 V2 allows us to run more challenging samples, either with lower input or quality than before. And this means we have even more confidence to recommend first-line testing with TSO 500 V2 instead of relying on a smaller, more limited panel for our oncology samples.
Sure, thank you. And question for you, I think, Heather. How was Illumina able to achieve improved coverage?
Yes, thank you, Helen. So the median exon coverage is the coverage across the panel. That's a metric that's in our sample QC report. And so with the V2 assay, we've made several changes to reagents and chemistry and done a lot of overall optimization to the workflow. And that has improved our library conversion efficiency. So with that improvement in library conversion, we do see higher median exon coverage with the V2 assay compared to V1. And our internal data shows that even if you lower the input to 30 nanograms of DNA input, you should see equivalent or higher coverage versus the V1 assay. So it's very exciting. We've made a lot of great improvements with V2.
And on the same theme of improvements, Heather, is there any difference between the V1 and the V2 with respect to the fusions detection, especially if you can address the supporting reads requirement? Because V2, it was mentioned 17 supporting reads for cornea fusion.
Yes, so the limit of detection metric has changed from V1. So now for limit of detection, we are looking at that in terms of supporting reads, which is the output from the analysis software. So with the V2 chemistry, due to all of the changes and improvements in library conversion and reducing down to one hybridization, we're now seeing higher levels of supporting reads with the V2 assay compared to V1, even at various input levels. So we do see higher supporting reads with V2, and that is a newer LOD metric compared to V1.
Okay, and a question about the kits, Heather. Do you have both the TSO 500 version 2 and TSO 500 HT version 2 for DNA only kits?
We actually just have one version of the V2 product, and it is compatible with all of our NextSeq instruments and NovaSeq instruments, and it's compatible with 384 indexes. So there's no need now to have a high throughput version of the product. We just have one version that you can run on any of those sequencers, and you should have enough indexes to be able to do that.
Great, thanks for that clarification. And a question for Daniel. Do you plan to take advantage of the option of automation to further reduce turnaround times?
Yes, we have the Hamilton and the Cyclone of Perkin-Elmer robots in our lab, and the next step is to automatize the protocol in order to reduce more time producing the libraries.
Thank you. Heather, is the TSA version 2 compatible with the NextSeq 2000?
Yes, it is compatible with the NextSeq 1000, 2000 platform with the P2, P3, and P4 flow cells.
Great. And for Daniel, do you report RNA or DNA only results if the other library does not meet QC standards?
Okay, it depends of the necessity of the result for the patient. If we obtain result from DNA or from RNA, and the oncologist needs the results to give the treatment, the correct treatment, we can elaborate the report. But before we discuss in a molecular tumor board, we always need to obtain the more sample and obtain the other part of the result.
Thank you, Daniel. Heather, has there been any consideration for updating the gene list or biomarker coverage in TruSight Oncology 500 to align with the latest clinical databases, such as Cosmic or ClinVar?
Yes, so the V2 product today has the same gene panel as the V1 product. So we have not yet updated the gene panel, but we do plan to update the gene panel, and we expect to have that update available in 2027. So that update should be more aligned with the medical guidelines.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to pause there and see if any more questions come in. Do you have any questions for each other that might be interesting? We'll come back to that one because we've got another question here, which is, would you recommend the version 2 to assess MSI in breast cancer samples? Heather, do you want to address that one?
Yeah, so the V2 product does call MSI, so that is an output of the analysis. If you'd like to use that for breast cancer samples, that is a use case for TSO 500. Helen, there's also a question about analysis software that I could speak to. So the analysis software for the TSO 500 V2 product, the first analysis app that will be compatible is Dragon TSO 500 2.6.2. And the question is the output of that analysis the same for the V2 assay as the V1 assay? And yes, it is the same output. And the only difference in the software is that there is a signal to noise baseline file that is specific to the V2 assay. So in the sample sheet, you would indicate which assay you're running to make sure that the baseline file is used correctly. And then there's a question about using the analysis with the CGW product in Belsera. And so you can do a FastQ workflow in Belsera using the Dragon analysis output. And then there's also options for reporting in Illumina Connected Insights. So that's another option that was asked about in the question.
Great, thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I've just got see if any more questions come up. Otherwise, we will be following up with anyone who asked a question that wasn't addressed by email, as I mentioned. So I think we've addressed everything that I've seen there. So I can remind you that this webinar will be available on demand shortly on the pathologist website. Everyone who registered will receive an email alert when it's ready, so you can revisit the topics you've seen today. That just remains for me to say thank you once again to Daniel Azuara and Heather Robinson for presenting this session. And thanks for everyone in the audience for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you at future webinars. So goodbye for now.